There are those certain songs in life where you remember where you were the first time that you heard them. I will never forget where I was the first time I heard U2's Sunday Bloody Sunday. I was watching MTV, it was 1983, I was sitting on my parents' shaggy 70s carpet, and I just remember thinking, I have never heard anything like this before. I have never heard a band so passionate about what they believe in that I could feel it ripping through their instruments and their vocal cords. I also remember where I was the first time I heard Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was 1991, I was home from college, I was sitting in my friend's Z28 outside of a restaurant parking lot. And I remember having this same thought. I've never heard anything like this before. I'd never heard such a perfect sonification of angst before in my life. And I also remember where I was the first time that I heard this song. Imagine, if you will, Benny Benassi's. You guys remember Benny Benassi's Skrillex Cinema remix? I was setting up production for a summer camp in 2011, and I heard it blast. They were testing the speakers with it, and I asked my friend, what is this? And they said, it's dubstep. And I remember having that same thought. I remember thinking, I've never ever heard anything, it's all good, I've never heard anything like this before. I've never felt music push me off of this emotional cliff and felt such a blissful release before. And then I'm driving in my car later on in the year and I hear Britney Spears' new single, and sure enough, it has this very drop-like breakdown section. And I just remember thinking, it's starting. And I remember thinking that it wouldn't be long before there would be this invasion of dubstep everywhere. And pretty soon it was. It was in our commercials. It was in our movie trailers. It was inescapable. And I don't think we can give dubstep sole credit for things like risers and sidechaining. I mean, we can trace elements of those things in other subgenres, but I would argue that dubstep's breaking down the door on the scene in about 2011 was really probably the gateway for, I think, America's mainstream cultural obsession with EDM. And it was an obsession that commercial markets jumped on. And so pretty soon, everywhere, we heard this form. We heard this frenzied build over this pre-chorus, reaching this apex of this instrumental break. And for a while, there were these attempts at these halftime drop-like dubstep breakdowns, but pretty soon, those morphed into just these instrumental breaks. And every once in a while, maybe a vocal refrain of a word or two, or some vocal chops. And so for a while, we were in this nonstop dance party on mainstream radio for a couple of years. And while we weren't looking, someone came in and stole something from us. And what they stole was the chorus. That traditional chorus, right? I mean, music is all about tension and release. And that moment where that chorus lyric aligns with that musical release of tension was gone. And I would argue that next to the rap song form's influence on the pop market, that this has been the biggest change in song form that we've had in over 50 years. And yet we're not really talking about it because, let's be honest, it's a moneymaker. It's a festival fueler. It's a casino sellout event. It's bigger than an influenced genre. So in the past year, what I've done is I've been studying every song that has hit the top 10 in Billboard's pop chart since around 2010 to see if I can trace this influence. And I don't think it's any mistake or coincidence that around 2011, we saw the chart start to change. And more songs had this new form where the traditional chorus was gone. And it was just this instrumental break. Now, I could present some boring slides to you of some data, but I thought it might be more fun, since we're at Loop, to perform the data. So what I'm going to do is, this is not meant to be a dance party, but what I want you to do is I'm going to very quickly blitz through this in chronological form, which you can read here in session view. I'm going to do a mashup of some songs that have hit the top 10 since 2010. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that I'm only going to play the instrumental breaks. I also promise I have done no additional side chaining. None whatsoever. I also want you to notice how scary it is that I can do this so easily, but that's another talk for another time. Here we go. Here we go. All right, let's do this. Let's mow through it. Here we go. All right, now, as fun as that was, I'm wondering if we've been at the party just a little too long. I mean, I love electronic music. I grew up playing in new wave bands. I was the kid that was programming New Order and Depeche Mode songs in my Ensoniq step sequencer in my bedroom. So I love electronic music, but I'm afraid that we've built this drop-addicted culture, and I'm afraid of what will happen if we take the high away. It's true that we're starting to see these instrumental breaks disappear, but why do I still feel like I'm getting ripped off when I listen to the radio? It's as if we've taken away these instrumental breaks, but we've left these pre-choruses and we thought, that'll do. It's almost as if we have forgotten how to write a traditional chorus because we haven't needed to do that in a while. I read this book about 15 years ago on visual media, but I think it relates to other things, other creative mediums. So Hillman Curtis said this about website design. I was letting the cutting edge detract from what I really wanted the site to communicate, my company's core values. I was allowing sheer possibility to override my beliefs in form, respecting the medium, and speaking to the head via the heart through the design. Have we forgotten what we want to communicate? I mean, these are all valid emotions, but are we still trapped in a market that's putting a lot of value on communicating just a handful of them? I still love listening to a little bit of dubstep. I love firing up some Skrillex collabs with Foreign Beggars, but I also love singing along with this song. Yes, audio. Rolling down the window. Remembering what it's like to be young again, 20 and invincible. But I also love singing along with this song too.
I just had to let you know you're mine.
A well-placed octave jump, an implied bass walk down, just reveling in the love that I have for my husband. And then I still get goosebumps to this day every time I hear the chorus of this song. I can't help it. I have to put my fist up in the air and scream along. And sure, I remember kind of in a cheesy way, just times in life where I wasn't sure that I was going to make it, but I did. So I'll leave you with a couple of questions here. Do we now have an entire generation of young people who have maybe missed out on making some emotional connections in more of a holistic way through this art medium because of this influence? And then, even though we're seeing the chorus start to come back, does it really matter? I hate to sound depressing, but in a market that's so bent on social media and influencers and branding, is the average teenager really listening to music to make an emotional connection anymore? I mean, maybe we just need to realize that pop music is by definition just that, whatever's popular. And maybe a tried and true song form that's been around over 50 years, maybe even that is subject to change by a market that ultimately dictates what will be popular or not. As I close here, I want to challenge you, maybe as creatives and producers, we can get back to this trifecta, which we know is really powerful, a trifecta that we can use to communicate maybe a wider range of emotions than the ones that we've been communicating lately. Because at the end of the day, that's the beauty of art, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, music helps us process life. I mean, to loosely quote Angels and Airwaves, I think music helps life not hurt so badly. I mean, what an amazing thing we have. The power to help life hurt a little less through what we create. I don't know about you, but that's something I'm willing to leave the party for every once in a while. Thank you so much for your time.